is pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
I have to return some videotapes. I have to return some videotapes. To return some videotapes. To return some videotapes. To return some videotapes.
Hey, welcome back to Strange Glow Video. My name is Justin. With me, as always, is my co-host, Alec. How you doing?
I am doing decent.
Doing
out
decent.
Here. You know, it is the depression season. That seasonal depression slams into you like a full force. Like it's like the trunk, the tool chest falling down the stairs in Home Alone. Is that Home Alone 2?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great movies. But yeah, I feel that. So mine hasn't kicked in as bad as it usually does by now because we've had a much warmer than usual fall. Like we're just now supposed to hit freezing overnight here.
Well,
and so I've been able to be outside a lot and get some sun, but you don't really venture outside usually during daylight hours. So
I was going to say, that's the thing is, in this household, we wake up much later because we do restaurant work and things. So the schedules are like sleep till 2 p.m. and then you get 3 hours of daylight. So
yes, which just exacerbates your sad. Makes it worse. Does not help. But, here we are. But we're coming up on the holidays, so we thought we'd go and do a classic holiday film. Well, some may not consider it a classic, but if you don't, you're wrong. So I will correct you immediately. We're going to talk Son-in-Law. So we're big Pauly fan shores around this place. And Son-in-Law is a classic Pauly Shore film. 1993.
Yes, this is an excellent movie. It was actually almost didn't get made. The production behind it was very bizarre. There was another movie about Pauly Shore playing a character that goes to London that Hollywood Pictures was trying to make. And Hollywood Pictures, I don't even think they still exist as like a thing, but they were essentially another one of Disney's subsidiary things that made like teenage comedies and young adult comedies, essentially, for the most part. And they had a picture deal with Pauly Shore at the time, Disney, and they were trying to figure out where they were going to do that stuff. And he had another movie at the time they were trying to film. And I watched this on VHS. Interestingly enough, the In the Army Now trailer is attached on this.
Oh, that's awesome. So this came out, this is like in Pauly Shore's heyday when he was doing like movie after movie after movie. So 1992, we saw the release of Encino Man. And then 93, we saw Son-in-Law. And then you say In the Army Now.
Then Biodome.
Yep, Biodome. And what was the...
Jury Duty, I think, came after that one.
Yeah, yeah, I think Jury Duty was the last... kind of the end of the Pauly Shore mainstream films for a while, right? He's done some more recent stuff, but...
out of those big starring roles from those 5 movies, like Jury Duty is definitely like my least favorite, but it's still a good watch. I don't know if you've seen it in a while, but Tia Carrere's in that with him.
I have not watched that one in a while. Now, I watched this with the wife and daughter earlier, and Liz had some pretty good laughs in this, so that was pretty good. She just, she thought it was like silly and over the top.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's ridiculous, and there's even things like just the fact that In the Army Now is already a Stripes remake. It's just that they took the scene from the mud wrestling scene from Stripes and didn't put it in the Army Now. They put it in this.
Yeah. Yeah, if you look at that, clearly the 80s comedy influenced Pauly Shore's comedy, right? He grew up going to comedy clubs with the family and all that, as being in the comedy industry, essentially.
Yeah.
So Pauly Shore plays Crawl in this, and then his co-star is Carla Gugino, and she is Rebecca Warner in this film. And then Patrick Renna is Zach Warner, the little brother. So he's well known for being in The Sandlot and some other roles, but he's definitely a good supporting cast member, right? He's pretty funny in this movie. I like his role there.
Yeah.
And then Tiffany Amber Thiessen, you probably know her from Saved by the Bell. She has a support role in this too, and she's pretty good. Kind of wish they would have had her character a little bit more throughout the movie, but we'll get to that. So, and then just the family. Mason Adams plays Walter Warner Sr., so the grandpa character, and he's pretty funny in there. He really kind of brings the movie to a fun ending when we get to that. It's pretty good stuff. So, do you remember the first time you saw this movie?
Nope. This is
Okay.
grew up watching, but this wasn't one that like I don't remember you being fanatical. I remember one of our other sisters being more fanatical about this movie, but same with like Drop Dead Fred.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember ever watching those for the first time either. But I don't remember watching them as many times as I watched the other movies either, like Batman and Ghostbusters and Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, Son-in-Law, I had a decent time with growing up. It wasn't like one of my favorites. When I was watching Pauly Shore, I much preferred Encino Man or In the Army Now. That was more my speed. But this one, as a holiday movie, has grown on me over the years, and it's silly, but it's fun, right? So that's why I like this one now.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that's like, okay, it's pretty cliche, like fish out of water stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
Pauly Shore is doing Pauly Shore, so that's kind of it's a Pauly Shore vehicle, pretty much. Like,
Yeah.
just here to display him being funny.
Yes, it's just to put him into funny situations, right? And so I thought that was pretty good. I mean, I was okay with it. This movie, I would say, got better for me. Like, right, the first few times I saw this as a kid, I was like, whatever, it was okay, but it just wasn't as funny as some other Pauly Shore stuff, in my opinion. But now I enjoy it quite a bit.
Speaking of movie T-shirts, we weren't speaking of movie T-shirts, but
That's on my list of notes, though, and
we've spoken about them before, like the "What Are You Looking at, Dick Nose"
from Teen Wolf, Stephen King
High on-
Rules from Monster Squad. Yeah, there's all the classic movie.
High on Stress from Revenge of the Nerds.
Yeah.
And
then,
obviously from this.
Yeah, well, and then you've got the Relax, I'm Local from What About Bob?
Oh, yeah.
Can't forget that one, but yeah.
Seduce Me, Please.
Seduce Me, Please. Yeah, Zach, the little brother, is wearing that at the college campus. So this movie actually, the first act of this movie is pretty fucking fast-paced because they have a lot to get through before we get to the movie itself.
Yeah.
And so we get to see our character Rebecca graduate high school. She's a valedictorian, all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, like, she's dealing with her boyfriend who's all handsy. And then she's going off to college, does that whole thing. The family encounters Crawl over theirs because he's like, in charge of the hall. So,
Resident advisor.
Yep. They get him set up with that role, and like he already like is off-putting to Rebecca's dad. And that was pretty awesome to kind of see some of that set up there. And then Zach has some of his funniest shit in this movie there. Going through. It is so weird though. It just reminds me of like such a, they're going on cliches here, but even Pauly Shore makes the joke about her being inbred.
Yeah.
And then like her brother is like criticizing her underwear choices. He's like, "Oh, cotton white panties." And you're just like, why the fuck are you going through your sister's underwear?
Right. He asked him later too, when he's milking the things. He's like, "Have you ever hands on my sister's?"
Yeah. Yeah. It's just so gross. It's just like, what is this supposed to be, an Arkansas movie here? Like, did anyone ever visit any of these people?
Inbreeders.
Yeah, it was wild, but it was pretty funny. Now, very much an asinine move, but when he's in the dorm rooms, the dorm roommates, he gets her underwear out and bra on his head, and he's just being an asshole, which is like every fucking preteen boy out there, unfortunately. Like people, if you don't correct that shit, it carries on. So looking at it now, it's pretty cringeworthy as a kid. Like, oh, that's pretty funny, but obviously Zach in the movie is well acted. That role is great, right? This kid is kind of like lost, confused, kind of idiot kid, but he's funny. He's endearing. He's his own self. So They wouldn't necessarily do that the same way now, but here we are.
I like how they're all like, "Oh my, lesbians! I've never seen my heavens."
Yeah, and then he's like, Dad, is your camera handy?
Yeah,
I mean, it's like every fucking cliche about like California and everything you could think of there, and you're like, okay.
yeah.
Blink twice and you will miss the Brendan Fraser Encino Man, aka his Link cameo at the
Yeah,
party.
this same studio, but yeah, checks out.
Yep. Yeah, he's at the college party there, the costume party, and he pulls a frog off Carl's hat and lights it on fire, puts a lighter under to cook it. And so you're like, okay, based off the success of Encino Man, they threw that in there for everybody. We also get a Flea cameo, right? Personally, my favorite Flea cameo is when he's in Back to the Future 2 and 3, but he's also in this as the tattoo artist that's kind of a creep. But it is funny. He like talks shit on him and he's like, yeah, you got a point. Like, he doesn't get mad or anything like that. He's like, you got a point, and just is okay with it.
Yeah,
I
he's
think that's
talking
the
shit to
funniest
him
thing.
too, though, because he's
Yeah.
like, she's like, I want something feminine, and then he's like, he's standing right next to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty funny. So,
But I did notice that they reversed some shots to get that reaction shot of him staring at him when he says like, "What
oh,
are you, you freak?" Because he has the tattoo on both sides of his neck. Apparently, not really, but like it's
yeah.
on one side of a spider or a scorpion or some shit.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. That's a good notice on there. And then just this whole fish out of the water scenario we get set up for. It's pretty fun. Like, they fly out and immediately he gets off the plane and they're like, what the fuck? And this takes place in South Dakota.
Well, yeah, like they almost don't even recognize her and
Yeah.
point out the tattoo thing, and that's a real tattoo she had. So
Oh, okay. So they just wrote it in the story.
I guess so.
Fair enough.
She's been in some stuff.
Yeah.
Look her up real quick. She was in the Spy Kids movies.
She was also in, I believe she was in,
She's in Sin City, the recut version. Interesting. Oh, she was just in Lisa Frankenstein that I watched this year.
yes, that's a pretty good movie. I enjoyed that quite a bit. Yeah, but she's in Lisa Frankenstein. Obviously, if you've been keeping up with her stuff, she's done a ton of films,
Yeah.
a lot of TV, which I appreciate that. It's like, it's good to see someone do something early on in a career like this movie where, like, I don't have any issues with the performance in this movie at all. She's fun.
Oh,
She
she's in
kinda
Watchmen. I forget. God damn
Oh,
it.
yeah, she is that too, isn't she?
She's a Silk Spectre in that.
Yep.
Yeah, she's done some things. She was in San Andreas, which is not a great movie, but
No, that was a major blockbuster though, so.
yeah, interesting. Oh, Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice. She played a voice. Interesting. And Man of Steel. She played a different voice. Weird. Anyway, let's see what else we got here.
So when I was watching this, right, there's a lot of fun scenarios in this. Like, as you said, it's your typical fish out of water movie, right? But it's all based on Pauly Shore and like his style of comedy written specifically for him, right? I don't think this movie would have worked had anyone else had done it, right? I think
it would have been a completely different movie. You'd have to change it to their style,
of
essentially.
comedy,
Like,
yeah.
you could have put a number of actors in there at the time, like him, and it would have been maybe a fine movie. I don't even know if I would say that, but like it would have been a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all about that person. So as long as that person is funny and can carry a movie enough, like I could see them putting somebody else on this. But like, yeah, Pauly Shore is what makes it for me.
Well, yeah, and even Pauly Shore in this movie is different enough from his other movies that this one kind of shines bright for him, I would say, just because he's not the complete total fucking idiot that he can be at times if he wants to be, like he's a little more sophisticated here. He says he's got his name Crawl, but then he's into the computers and has all these other things going for him and adapts pretty quickly, even though like things aren't going his way.
Yeah.
So I think that was pretty fun. Him getting pissed on by the cow was pretty hilarious. And then obviously the John Denver tape that he finds in there with Country Boy while he's driving that combine is a classic scene in this movie.
The combine scene is great. I have that song's on playlists in mine because when I'm driving a car, I like to hear that shit too.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a classic movie playlist song. You have to throw that in there.
What about the one of my favorite lines is when he was bringing those sandwiches up there to him, and they're talking on computers. And he's like, "You ever meet the Tooth Fairy?" And he says, "No." And he just like walks up on him and he's like, "Wouldn't fall asleep tonight if I were you."
Yeah. Yeah, that's like the dark humor. And then he starts screaming. He's like, chill, man. And he goes and like sits across the room. That's a pretty good scene. Like you could have had just a really funny interaction with those two. Cause like I felt like their comedy between each other was pretty genuine as far as like what was going on in the room.
Yeah.
One of the other funnier segments in this movie is like when he's hitting on Connie, the mom.
Mm.
Like he goes and catches her in the shower, and then like just the way he talks to her is so weird. He's like, "You're nasty," and then it's just like this whole thing.
Yeah, he says, "Oh, I don't want to be rude or anything, but you're giving me a semi."
Yeah, yeah, that's hilarious. So,
Or when they go out to try clothes on and he tries on the assless chaps, always gets me. Cheek
yeah,
chillers.
yeah, that was pretty funny. And him just doing all the stupid shit on the farm, like where he's set up for failure, where he's not completely failing in the worst way, but then he's able to do a lot of that, like with his own California flair, like feeding the cows when he's putting the feed in the bins. He does the whole. It's cheesy, but he does the whole like roller skating thing down the hill with it.
Right.
And it's such an early '90s vibe there, and I'm all for it, man. It
Well, the
really,
thing is because he's getting like 6 pieces of grain and all those different things. It wouldn't actually work. It's a bad
no,
idea. But
yeah,
yeah,
but the implication is there that he's trying and he's like being successful, even though he didn't get enough grain in there, and he just goes down the hill. So it's like it's silly, but it's entertaining. So
I like the proposal fiasco. He shows up with shit that reminds me of our dad doing with his underwear hanging out of his shorts.
yeah,
Like a jackass.
Cousin Eddie style on Christmas Vacation. Your shirt's tucked into your underwear. Yeah.
And this fucking Travis guy is just trying to like so hard to try and lock it down. Like, ugh.
Well, you already know that he's a piece of shit too, though, because he's already like cheating on the girl with
Tracy.
Yeah. And so that is one thing about the ending of this movie is the fact that like Tracy has the fucking nerve to sit with the family after she was fucking this girl's boyfriend the whole time she's been gone at college. Yeah, she was wronged too, but like I don't think that rights her wrong.
I don't know if she knew. I feel like he probably would lie about something like that anyway.
Oh, that they're on a break or something to her.
Who knows?
Okay. I guess if you put that in perspective for a character, that makes a little more sense. Like, right, she was just naive.
Could be.
But yeah,
Either way, he's the psychopath.
Yeah, Travis is a complete piece of shit in there. And then Theo's a fucking asshat too.
Yep. Loser shit. I do, yeah, like at dinner when he gets punched, and he just falls immediately down. Why did you do that?
Yeah, that's a real funny scene, right? Because he's just like not used to confrontation. Oh, that was pretty good. Yeah. Another really good scene in this was when, they try to do this heart to heart and balance it with comedy, right? Because they try to have like they try to make this a family friendly holiday classic. They really do. And then they try to make it funny at the same time. So you go from this whole scene where he's out there fishing with dad and grandpa, and all of a sudden, grandpa gets pissed at dad for not listening, and then Crawl calls dad out on that, and it's like, hey, isn't that exactly what you do with Zach? And he's like, he's getting the message there, but he's like, who asked you?
Yeah.
And then obviously we have to change the pace because grandpa's having a heart attack, and then It's fucking hilarious when he says, "I would rather fucking die than kiss you."
Yeah.
Like that's pretty dark, man. Like and that I mean, you got to wonder like what kind of scenario did the writer of this movie encounter to come up with that, because like CPR is really well known now, but at the time when like that was education was just really starting to spread on a lot of that shit,
Yeah.
there's probably someone out there that'd be like, "Oh yeah, you're trying to kiss me," and fucking silly and shit. Uh, the turkey feathers gag was pretty silly and funny. Like you gave the turkey a heart attack and it died, which I'm all for. Pardon the turkey. Let it go.
Yeah.
But then he's like, you just got to start at the bottom and pull the feathers. And he pulls the feathers, and that fucking turkey just goes wild in the kitchen. And then he's like, peace. I'm going to this party.
You know what
But
I'm just now realizing? Sorry to
what's that?
interrupt you, but
No, you're
holy
good.
shit. Cindy Pickett, who plays the mom,
Mm-hmm.
she's also the mom in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah, she's in tons of shit.
Tons of shit. That's the only things I've seen that she's in. But
Oh, Sleepwalker she's in? Okay, that's a Stephen King movie. Yeah, I've seen that.
Deep Star 6 I've actually heard of, but yeah, interesting.
Yeah, looking at the IMDb here. Yeah, there's she's got a ton of stuff on TV. Let me go look at the
And the dad was in Red Dawn. He plays the mayor of the town in the original Red Dawn.
Yep. Yeah, no, the casting in this movie is really solid. Like they had good character actors and good supporting cast and crew. Like that supporting cast and crew is what makes Pauly Shore shenanigans work in this, because they're like played pretty level, pretty straight, and then you can just deal with Pauly Shore being a whack job in this.
There's also go ahead.
You're having a little struggle over there. It's all good.
Yawning. I was just saying that there's also wouldn't call it a cameo because they didn't put him in there because he's well known, but a small role from Adam Goldberg.
Yeah, he's one of the isn't he the cowboy at the party?
The Indian.
Oh, the Indian. Okay.
But he's in like Dazed and Confused, Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, he's like he is a famous support cast member, basically, right? He's not known for his leading roles, but he's a support role in tons of stuff, and he's pretty damn good at it, right?
He does a lot more
Find
like
your
lead
niche.
roles on TV too, as opposed
Yeah, for sure.
like cop shows and shit.
Yeah, no, I think when you watch this movie start to finish, it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
It is kind of one of those things though where they drugged him, and like since I don't watch this movie every year at Thanksgiving, which I probably will start now, just because every time I watch it I like it a little bit more, just because I just enjoy it a little bit more. It's more familiar and all those things, and the ending's pretty good. I like it when Grandpa's talking shit to Travis, and he's basically just doing a speech that Crawl would have made himself. Like he's throwing in all the jargon and all the fucking slang. It's pretty good. And then the other thing at the end of this movie, which is fucked up, is the fat shaming he does at the end. He makes the fat joke when Theo's fired. He's like, he's going to need a lot of food stamps.
He made a lot of fat jokes throughout. He was like, man, it's Miller time, huh, Theo?
Yeah.
Maybe it should be Miller Lite for you, though, huh?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's like the entire time. So, but that last one, he's going to need a lot of food stamps. It's kind of like one of those subtle digs in the line. It's not the funniest line in the movie, but you look at it and you're like, damn, that's brutal.
Yeah.
Brutal. No, I get a kick out of this movie. It's fun. It's kind of silly, kind of campy at the same time, but it's endearing enough that I think it goes well. And like, I feel like Pauly Shore is like pretty sincere as his character in this. Sometimes he can be on the whinier side of things to some degree with like his comedy delivery, but I'd say this is good.
I think this is aside from Encino Man, the most well-liked Pauly Shore movie, so
yeah, I would agree with that. I would say that
other people, because not a lot of people like Biodome and In the Army Now. Those are pretty. In the Army Now specifically, I don't even know anybody besides Pauly Shore nuts who's even fucking seen that thing.
See, I used to watch that all the time growing up, and I loved it because it reminded me of Stripes and Spies Like Us and all that kind of silly shit.
Yeah.
But some people don't like that movie just because of Andy Dick. They fucking despise that guy, and so they don't want to watch it because of him at all. So
I think he's kind of an asshole in real life, but
yeah, he is. But that was so early on in his career. Then, like, I don't think he had.
he didn't
He
have time to
wasn't.
be an asshole yet. Just a weirdo.
Yeah,
Which is fine. I
exactly.
like weirdos. That's why I like Andy Dick and Pauly Shore together. Sure.
Yeah.
He's not even that weird in that movie. He's honestly pretty straight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then what's her name? That she's in Tank Girl and A League
Lori
of Their
Petty.
Own. Lori Petty. Yeah,
She's in fucking Point Break, man.
yeah, she's in some good stuff. So like having her in there too, I really like that movie. Holds up pretty well. I mean, Pauly Shore was such a niche for the time of the early 90s, right? It kind of filled this gap between like 80s comedy and some of the big SNL 90s comedies. But he was there pretty consistently too. So
Yeah, I wish I had been there to see more of his MTV era stuff, but just too young and didn't exist for part of it.
you literally did not exist.
Yeah.
I mean, part of you existed, but
The egg part.
yeah, that had been sitting around for a while,
30 years already.
gathering dust on a shelf. It's all good though. Yeah, so if I'm thinking about my favorite Pauly Shore movies, this is one. The rewatchability on this is high because it's kind of got that annual Thanksgiving type of movie. You can throw that on. I think that works pretty well for it.
Yeah.
But I do love Biodome. Biodome's so good.
Biodome's great too. Yeah.
Encino Man's cast is fucking stellar as well. I mean, you look at it, and a lot of his movies are better than they have any right to be, but I don't feel like enough people talk about these movies still, right? I feel like there's people missing out.
Encino Man is such an early 90s like staple. Like it's such
Mm-hmm.
it fits in there with like the Bill and Ted type movies. Like it
Yes.
feels like that time era, and like even the plot where it's like this weird fantastical thing just happening to some normal teenagers, dude.
Yeah, and I feel like Pauly Shore was like the type of movies that came out. They weren't necessarily box office hits, but they were like fucking video store staples, right? Everyone I know that saw a ton of Pauly Shore movies, it was all on VHS from the rental store. They had them and they purchased them and owned them at home, right? It wasn't like, hey, there's a new Pauly Shore movie. We're all going to run to the movie theater and see it. Like, I don't recall seeing any of his stuff in theaters. I recall renting it all or seeing it on HBO or Showtime or Cinemax or whatever else. And so that is to me pretty fascinating because when you think about like cult classics, right? Cult classics are the type of things that get popular at home. They don't do well at the box office. Hence the thing where, it's kind of this underground following. So
Yeah.
I do appreciate those. But I think out of all of them, as far as the broadest widespread appeal, Son-in-Law probably has the most appeal to the largest audience because the fish out of the water scenario works. His comedy's pretty tame in this, right? There's some boner jokes and a few other things, but it's not like completely out of place because he's like trying to make the mom feel hot and important again and like, sparks the relationship between the parents, that kind of shit. So I feel like this has the most broad appeal for people. Like if you're just starting with Pauly Shore, it's probably a good one to get into and check out and then kind of see the other ones. Cause this one, you can watch it with anybody really without having to worry about it being like, oh my God, what did you just show me?
Yeah.
That combine scene though, really just makes me want to throw on some John Denver and drive around a fucking giant vehicle. I mean, I think that really was awesome. And then they had the whole fucking crop duster fly by and he's scripted crawl into the cornfield. Classic.
Yeah. Classic 90s shit.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me want to watch like Major Pain. Come to think of it, I don't think I have that on VHS. I have the DVD, but
Major Pain is amazing. So I got our grandma to go to the theater with me for that. When we went and saw that in theaters. Went with her. I was up in Omaha at the time when that was in theaters, and Aunt Ann and Carl were going to the movies and were going to take me, and I demanded that her grandma go with us, and she's like, I haven't been to the movies in forever, and that was the only time I ever knew her to go to the movies the whole time,
Yeah, well, I never convinced her to.
So I fucking talked her into it. How, I don't know, but I got to see that at the theater with her, which is pretty cool. So gotta love that kind of stuff. So what are you looking forward to for Thanksgiving? I know some people like Thanksgiving, some people hate it, but we're kind of leading into that, right? That's next week.
I do like the food and the meal and watching planes, trains, and automobiles, but that's about it. There's some complicated issues with family and shit, so
Families are very complicated, and I feel like that is one tradition that like is our sibling group is not extremely close by any means, right? I feel like that's something that we all independently took away and do on our own, regardless of who's around, right? Is watch planes, trains, and automobiles. So
yeah.
I think that's one of those. Actually, I was listening to the soundtrack tonight. I was dropping the boys back off over at their mom's place.
I really like listening to that Yellow song that's on there.
Yeah. Well, the soundtrack is nice because it's got not just the instrumental versions, it's got the regular versions on there too. So you get both options. So that's pretty cool. I like having those to be able to throw on. Just takes you through the movie without watching the movie. It's great.
Yeah.
Good road trip music too. A couple of those songs, really, for sure. All right. Well, that's pretty much our show for tonight. So let us know what you thought of Son-in-Law in the comments below. If you've never seen it, tell us why you haven't seen it. And then if you go watch it, come back and tell us how you liked it. I'd love to see what someone thinks of it after viewing it for the first time, because this is a Thanksgiving classic.
I got nothing to say. Yeah, just hope you watch it. Have a good time with it. It's easily the number 2 Thanksgiving movie of all time.
There's not a lot of competition there, which is unfortunate, but it's a good one.
I did today put out a video of my top 10 Thanksgiving movies on my YouTube channel specifically, but yeah, some of them were like not Thanksgiving movies.
Yeah, you're grasping at straws there for some
like
of those. I'm sure.
Spider-Man 2002.
Yeah, like it has
Thanksgiving scene in there, and it's a good Thanksgiving scene. And honestly, that movie slaps on Thanksgiving. There is a parade in that movie. It's not a Thanksgiving parade, is it? But
oh, was it though? I don't know. It's a good question. I will allow that one.
Right.
I will allow that one. Right? That fits. That fits the narrative. So
and I got to say real quick while I'm on that subject that it occurred to me while making this list that Spider-Man is that's specifically that one is just as important to me as Batman 89. Specifically because I was 10 when it came out, or 11 actually, and I was able to see it in the theater, fully comprehend it and everything.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, so that came out right around when I graduated high school. I'm that old. Yeah.
2002.
Yep. And I remember at my graduation, like they did our project graduation thing where like they took us all out to go celebrate or whatever afterwards. And I remember I got some gift cards. So with the gift cards, I got the Spider-Man tie-in game for the PlayStation 2. It was a pretty fun game.
Oh, that one? The first one? Yeah, it's actually a pretty solid PlayStation game.
Yeah.
Nathan had that on PlayStation 2. We played all the time.
Yeah, I remember you fought the Vulture in that one. So that's a pretty good one. I enjoyed that. So, all right. Well, that's it for this week. So we'll see you back at it next week. And yeah, hope everyone has an awesome time watching this movie. We'll see you later.